We'll call our meeting to order for Aberdeen City Council for Monday, June 3. Carl.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne.
Here.
Lunsman.
Here.
Slate Hansen.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bunceness.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Rux.
Here.
Mayor Leeson.
Here. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could entertain a motion to approve last week's minutes, please.
So moved.
Second. Motion Rux, second by Olson. Any changes or corrections, Councilmember Bunceness?
No, I'm good.
You're good? All right. If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We have a proclamation to read tonight, and I don't have it. Do you have it?
Is it on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Now can you make it bigger? Whereas the city of Aberdeen, there we are. Whereas the city of Aberdeen in the state of South Dakota has a significant interest in the continued vitality of general aviation, aircraft manufacturing, aviation education, aviation organizations, and community airports, and whereas general aviation and the Aberdeen Regional Airport have an immense economic impact on Aberdeen, whereas general aviation not only supports South Dakota's economy, it improves the overall quality of life by supporting emergency medical and healthcare services, law enforcement, firefighting, and disaster relief, and by transporting business travelers to their destination safely. Whereas the nation's aviation infrastructure represents an important public benefit, we declare June General Aviation Month in South Dakota. And we'll also point out we have an event coming up this Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. At the airport. And we do often maybe fall into thinking about the airport as the connection to Delta. That's 2-3 times a day, but all the rest of the day, a lot of work is going on out there in the rest of the airport that's just as essential to our economy here. I don't know why we're getting feedback here today. So people should check out the schedule of those events on Saturday at the airport and get out there. Should be nice weather for that. Next on our agenda is the open forum, and before we hear from Mark Hoven about mosquitoes, a more pleasant presentation maybe, not about mosquitoes. Angie is here to update us on the food drive that she came and told us about before it started. So,
I'm just saying a quick thank you to Mayor Leeson, City Council, and the community of Aberdeen. We beat our record for our food drive that happened on May 11th, I believe the day was, of over 25,000 pounds of food, and that's beat our record by a lot. We had a goal of about 20,000, and that would have hit our record, and we went sailing over that. So I know you guys you did the proclamation, and the city really supports this event, and I know that you guys do proclamations every week and every month for things, but it really does mean a lot to the community, so I just wanted to say that. I know that's what you guys do, but it means a lot to the community and to the agencies and to the recipients for that food. So, and this is over 6 months worth of food for the Journey Home and Salvation Army. So thank you.
all right, thanks. What do they do the other 6 months?
That's when you get closer to the holidays, and then a lot of people do their food drives, and so this kind of gets us into that. And so this is just when it starts to slow down, the shelves start to deplete. That's when we do this food drive. So it's strategic. Okay. Yeah.
So over 6 months, that'd be maybe 150 pounds of food a day over 6 months. So
yeah.
Okay.
The green peas will probably last longer than some items, but yeah, it all gets eaten.
And
Donate it back next year.
yeah, thank you. We actually had more than that donated, but if you remember that day, it was raining, and we lost. We did have a little spoilage from some that didn't package it up, and then we also had some that was packaged up so well it was in 4 or 5 bags that it took us 5 times as long to dig it out. But it was a fun day. And thanks to you and United Way for that. So Next on the agenda, old business, two ordinances for rezoning that passed without objection last week. Ordinance. Oh, let's do you. Unless you want to wait till the end.
No, it's fine.
I told him it'd be early.
Okay. Fire me up here. So, I'll walk you through a presentation that I give quite often to the board and to different people. So, there you go. Promise not to keep you too long. I brought along some of the products that we use. Just I thought it might be helpful. Just kind of see some of the things that we do. Talk about this evening real briefly. And those are the larvicides that I'm going to send around first that we use in the water. And this is the top. This would be the permethrin that we use. And this shows how much permethrin we put out in 1 acre. So there's not very much there to sign. So we should kind of give that as an example to people so they kind of understand what we're trying to do and how we try to, however we can, to protect the environment. I'm gonna play a little video for you, and if it goes, it'll be great.
Mosquitoes, the deadliest creatures on Earth, are responsible for killing more than 1 million people each and every year. Mosquito control is an important public health function. Fortunately, most people in the United States live, work, and play in areas where publicly funded programs help protect people from mosquitoes and the diseases they carry. These programs, run by mosquito control experts, have made great strides in safeguarding our health and quality of life. For example, malaria was once a big problem in the United States, but has essentially been eliminated from our country. The battle continues, however, because mosquitoes still routinely transmit diseases. West Nile virus is the most common, affecting thousands of people each year with symptoms that range from fever to lifelong debilitating consequences, even death. Crystal Wally is living proof.
It was heartbreaking. I have a husband and I have 2 little girls. And I was just scared to death that they were going to lose me. My first symptoms, I felt really fatigued. I would go home from work, I would get off around 3:30. By the time I got home, I would have to get in bed, and I wouldn't get up till the next morning. Then I noticed my lymph nodes were swollen. I had a rash on my upper chest and back. It was just really scary.
But today, Crystal's on her way to recovery.
I was completely paralyzed for almost a year. Had to relearn everything, had to have people take care of me, have sitters to live inside with me to take care of my children. And today, I'm not 100% recovered, but I live a functional life. I take care of myself and my family.
Adequately funded mosquito control, disease surveillance, and public awareness are the best ways to protect our health and quality of life from the danger of mosquitoes and the diseases they carry. William Terry would agree.
I was coming down with stomach flu, and my wife carried me to the doctor, and doctor put me in the hospital. I went in a coma for 3 weeks, and then when I came out of the coma, I was paralyzed.
Like Crystal, William also contracted West Nile, and he lives every day with permanent effects of the virus.
It's been 11 years since I got it. Now, I have to wear braces on my legs to get around and walk. The hardest part of it is trying to keep my balance. I can walk without the braces, but it's not a pretty sight to see me walk. Mosquito control professionals, you don't realize how important they are to your community. So I'm really thankful for the people that we see in neighborhoods like mine.
Rick LaBelle has a different story. His daughter lost her battle at the age of 20 after being bitten by a mosquito that carried Eastern equine encephalitis, also referred to as triple E.
Children are not supposed to die before their parents. You bring them into the world, you raise them, you love them, and you hope that they go on to become successful. So the shock, it's just, there are no words to describe it. It's incredibly important, it's paramount for individuals within communities, community leaders, and not just community leaders, but everybody, every citizen of that community to support mosquito control. Individuals that work for mosquito control They are unsung heroes.
Don't take chances when it comes to mosquitoes. Protect yourself and your family, and support your public mosquito control program by encouraging government officials to adequately fund public health programs, eliminating mosquito breeding sites on your property, and encouraging your friends, neighbors, and community to do the same.
Just want to touch a little bit on West Nile, just so you kind of understand how that works. West Nile is a bird disease, and it isn't a human disease. It functions within the birds and the mosquitoes, and right now, mosquitoes are trying to get to the birds to move the blood around, and depending on how that happens, we'll always determine what kind of a West Nile season we're going to have. We are dead-end hosts. Humans and horses are what we call accidental, and that's because it gets to be so many Culex mosquitoes that they can no longer find the birds, but they got to find a blood meal to survive, and so they will come and they will feed on humans and horses, and the horses, they've already been vaccinated against West Nile. Obviously, humans are not, and so that's where we see it flowing into it. So this is West Nile last year. We had 161 cases in the state, ranging anywhere from 2-year-olds to 89-year-olds. 56 people were hospitalized, and we had 4 deaths, including 1 Brown County resident as well. This is where it looks into the map and where West Nile was in South Dakota last year. And again, Brown County was ground zero. We had the most cases. We had the most incidents of West Nile of any of the counties in the state. Again, remembering that Aberdeen is just a part of Brown County, and Brown County is the largest county within the state. So our goals in mosquito control are really just 2 goals I tell our kids. Our first one is to protect the citizens from mosquito-borne viruses, and right now that virus is West Nile, and we really go hard at that. The second thing is we want to reduce the nuisance mosquitoes in the community so people can enjoy their backyards and be out in the public and not have to be chased down back into their houses. This is pretty much a snapshot of who we are. We are surveillance driven. That is the basis of what we are. We trap, we dip, we look for mosquitoes, and we see where they're at. The next level is the larviciding. Once we find them, we larvicide those mosquitoes. Talk a little bit about that. And really the least thing we do is probably the loudest thing you'll see is, and the most visible thing is our adulticiding, our little machines running around. But realistically, time-wise, that's one of the least things that we actually do in mosquito control. All those other things flow around in mosquito control that we have to do, whether it's public education, responding to calls, doing some source reduction, training of our staff. Again, why we trap our mosquitoes, and we have trap sites all over town. We want to monitor those adult numbers. We want to find out what is in our traps, what type of mosquitoes they are. We want to know, are they carrying any viruses that we're aware of? We monitor the efficiency of our labo efforts. We bring larvae actually back into our labs and see whether or not it rolls through its life cycle after we've treated the water, which it should not do. And then that actually determines how we go as far as our ULV and our fogging when we get out into the community is determined by our surveillance program. Our traps look very much like this. We have 6 traps within our 6 spray zones. These are historical traps. They've been in there for a number of years, and they give us our data. We live off those 6 traps as far as what we test and how we determine whether we spray. We put out specialty traps as well. We have rotator traps set up that trap 24 hours a day. That'll tell us when the mosquitoes are flying, so we can look in there and say that everything, we got heavy numbers at 11 o'clock, and that's when we need to be out, particularly when we're battling the Culexes. We have CDC traps, and this is the BG trap, which is the new trap on the market, about 5 years old now. It's really good at getting mosquitoes and bringing in mosquitoes for us to look at. So this kind of shows you our trapping around the community. The little green arrow, the little green dots are really good. That means there hasn't been a lot there. The big red thing over at the cemetery says that they're trapping a lot of mosquitoes. This is all species, all mosquitoes that we have out there. You can kind of see through the map what's there. You break that down. Last year at the cemetery, we collected right just shy of 40,000 mosquitoes at the cemetery last year. And then you look down where the green is, which looks like a lot of mosquitoes, but spread over the summer, that's not too bad. It tells us that we've done a pretty good job within the community of keeping our numbers down. And then, of course, we separate those mosquitoes. This is the Culexes, and this is the trapping of Culexes. Really mirrors what we did on all the species. Again, Wiley and Lee Park, Manor, Taft, those have been really good for Culexes. That's in the community, so again, our efforts have been good there. Again, the outside traps at the cemetery and Players and the Arboretums, those are mosquitoes that are migrating into our community probably in the continual battle that we have. So And again, the numbers there, they mirror really close to what the species are. We collected about 8,600 culixes out at the cemetery alone last year. So they had a pretty good number. Once those mosquitoes are collected, we bring them into our lab, so to speak, and we identify them, we break them down, nuisance and vectors, and then we take those Culex mosquitoes and we test them. And we use what we call a rapid analysis measuring platform, which is a machine that'll give us instant results, basically, within 2 hours. We put those mosquitoes into a pool, a little vial of 50 mosquitoes. Last year, we tested 806 pools last year, so we had a really heavy Culex year last year. 33 of those pools came positive, and we knew where those positive pools were at, and so that really helps us to know what's going on in our community immediately, really, once we get those pools back in. So, good little tool. Larviciding, again, our best method to control our mosquitoes. It targets specifically to mosquitoes when we're larviciding. The products that we use, we apply it to the water, and again, we monitor that to see how those products are doing. I shared those with you. They're expensive products, so we want to make sure we're getting the most out of those products when we put them out, when we go. Last year, we treated all of the storm drains in the community. We had a dry year, so we didn't get into the storm drains as much because if there wasn't any water in there, we weren't too worried. We treated about 700 acres of land last year, which is a little lower than what we normally do, but again, it was a dry year. We work on source reduction. We try to dry up those pools, those areas where we're producing mosquitoes. Mosquitoes can really produce them just about anywhere. And then we GPS and we pretty much map all the breeding sites. Our software's been doing that for about 11 years now, where the kids will go out and they'll map that and GPS those sites so we know where to return. We added a little drone to our system about 4 years ago. It goes out and it helps us to find the water when the machine is out. And if I can run this, it'll be really sweet, but it'll kind of show you, well, I didn't go. Anyway, what happens is we take the drone out and it goes up before the larviciding machine and looks for the water. So we aren't putting that larvicide on dry ground because it's so expensive. We probably have paid for that drone 4 or 5 times over by just having it working in conjunction with our larviciding guns. These are the polygons that we make. These are the bigger pools of water. Again, the kids will go out and we find it and we mark those. We also mark the ditches where water has been produced. The thing you need to remember, this is 11 years where if we ever find any water, if we ever find any larvae, we put that into our system. Some of these, well, they probably a lot of them have come alive because we had a lot of water this year, but like last year, most of them didn't have water and there was no need to return to those sites. But at one time or another, they might have held temporary water. And so we would go in and treat those sites. And the temporary water sites, we use a product called BTI, which is really inexpensive, but it only lasts for 4 or 5 days and it's actually an immediate kill into the site. So we use that in our temporary water sites a lot. The storm drains around the community, again, we will be into these. And we try to treat those at least once a month if there's water in those storm drains. We use our mosquito bikes. So a lot of that, the kids go on the bikes and they go into the neighborhoods and they treat those storm drains. They use little pouches that you've seen go around and they throw those pouches in those storm drains. Primarily, we use these in the neighborhoods. We're in the 6th Avenue, Roosevelt, busy streets. We're putting the pickups out there. It's a little too dangerous to have the bikes out, but this has made this a lot quicker process for us over the years. And this kind of puts it all together with storm drains and polygons and ditches that we deal with and where we've noticed breeding sites. And just today I had a guy come in and he gave me another breeding site that we didn't have that has showed up behind his house east of town or west of town, and so we'll add that to our repertoire as well. And then we get into our adult society program. Once we realize we need to go out and treat mosquitoes, we do a lot of target sprays at Wiley and Riverside and ball fields and golf courses. We did 19 citywides last year, which was high, but again we had a pretty good influx of the Culex mosquitoes and what we felt was West Nile. We did one area over our city in early July. And then we do the barrier treats where we might have band concerts or special events wherever people will gather. We'll do those barrier treats, and that's just simply to hold back the mosquitoes while they have their event, and they put them on. So typical night spray, looks pretty green. That's a good thing. Green is good. Red is bad. Cover the city. Our trucks are all GPSed and labeled in. We can go in and tell the exact second that truck was out in front of somebody's house. And it tells us exactly what that sprayer is putting out and what it's producing to make sure that it stays well within the label rates that we have. So very efficient when we go, and we know where those trucks are going, and we kind of keep an eye on that. And then again, our spray zones, we've had these out in the public. We have 6 major spray zones that the trucks are in. The yellow lines are the alleyways that we do now for our 7th truck. And then we have an 8th truck that goes out, and that does our bike trails and golf courses and Wiley Park and covers the city. We can cover the city in about an hour and a half. 2 hours if things get a little slow, because we want to try to get through the city as quickly as we can while the mosquitoes are still active to us. So And our aerial spray program comes out of Halstead, Minnesota, and that is custom airborne spraying. That kind of shows what they did last July. He actually flies a little bit north and south of the city to try to catch some of those migrating adults into our community when he's out. Again, this kind of shows another overall view. Those little brown dots are obstacles that he has to maneuver around. He's at treetop level, and he moves pretty fast through the community, and they do a great job. And again, we have them at our beckoning call if need to be. And then our 3D program, which is our public awareness program, we're out doing this. We put a flyer in the paper this past Sunday. News releases are out there. We put informational boards. Really, what we really need to have is the public to take responsibility for their private property. If they can take care of the standing water and take care of the, where we have water under flower pots and different places, it's amazing what those mosquitoes can breed. And so we work with the public and try to encourage them to be, really to help us out and to do their job in there. We're also at the Brown County Fair, National Night Out, wherever we can get in front of the public and talk about mosquitoes and how we control mosquitoes and how they can help us to do our job better in different places. So, yeah. All right. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Well, before questions, I just wanted to add that besides fighting the health issue, going back to when this started, when the West Nile thing started, 2004 or 5 in that area, the quality of life in Aberdeen is significantly better because we're fighting the West Nile. Yep. Because there were times in the past where we just kind of gave up because we didn't have that scare of the health to spur us to spend this kind of money. And so it's really been a fabulous change in the city of Aberdeen over the last 15 or 20 years with the outdoor quality of life in the summer. So, questions from the...
I have a couple of questions, actually. Mark, thank you. As I listened to this presentation, you just made me think of about a couple of things at my house, and I'm like, ooh, I need to go dump that water. So thank you for that. But the questions that I have was, one, my sump pump is draining into the street, and so that water where that is, it's not sitting necessarily. There's little bits of water there. Is there something that I should be doing to make sure that water isn't breeding mosquitoes? It's moving, but
moving water is not a threat to us. Okay. Mosquitoes will not breed in a moving water. They're going to deal in stagnant water, stale water. If the water is moving in any way, if the sump pump's discharging every few minutes or whatever, probably is not going to create an issue. If there's water trapped in the storm drain and it's there for a while, yeah. And then people who ask me about water that potholes, for example. That's not a problem because they get driven in, and that's not our problem areas. Our problem areas are where they might have a stagnant water, where they're watering their flowers and they overwater it, and there's water in the bottom of their bin. Mosquitoes will stay, and wherever they can get their meal, they're going to stay there. So if they're able to feed off the humans that are there, they're going to continue to breed there. And so that's what we tell them, that you need to just go around your property and clean out your gutters and just get any standing water that you can out of there. I don't think sump pumps are a threat to you. I think that water moves, and I don't think there'll be any larvae that'll be able to be established there. So.
Okay. So what should folks be doing in their backyards? Like, do you have a recommendation? Like, I buy that cutter stuff that you put onto your garden hose and spray the backyard. Sure. Are those kind of things effective, or what do you recommend for people to do in their backyards?
That's very effective. Tempo's a very effective product as well, that you can put out at 7 to 10 days effectability. Just make sure you spray your bushes down wherever the mosquitoes can harbor. They can get into bushes, they can get into tall grass, they're going to sit there and wait, so you need to knock those down and spray those out. And again, just look for issues on your property that could breed mosquitoes. Mowing your grass, you got to get the grass down. If you have long grass, they're gonna feed into that grass and stay there. So it's just taking that personal responsibility to take care of your property, and then go ahead and treat it if you have mosquitoes, and spray down those areas, whether you use a private firm or whether you do it yourself. But Temple's a great product. Cutter's a great product. They all work very well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anyone? I think I've made note of this before, Mark, but it's worth repeating every year. When this started, Mark was already pretty darn busy managing all the parks in town, and took this on entirely on his own supervisory as an additional duty. And the city is grateful to you for doing that, and it's a great example of people that work for the city.
It's been fun at times. All right. Thank you very much for your support and your help.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, Mark.
How'd I do, Carl?
All right. Okay, now we can go to old business. Two rezoning ordinances that passed without exception and proposed tonight for second reading and final adoption. First is 190501. Brett?
No changes from last week.
We have
Second.
motion Bunsness, second by Johnson for second reading final adoption. Any questions? Roll call, please, Carl.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bundsness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leeson.
Aye, motion carries. The second is ordinance 190503, same thing.
No changes with this one either.
Move approval. Second.
Motion Rux and second by Olson. Questions, anyone? Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bundsness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leeson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 6, our consent calendar, items A through G, routine city business.
Move approval. Second.
Motion Remley, second by Slate Hansen. Questions on any of those? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Abstain.
Motion carries. Here's my second page. You use yours. There we go. I put it somewhere. Under new business, this is the appointed time for hearing on a special 6-day retail license for Act 2 for their next performance. Need a motion to approve that, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion Ronayne, second by Remley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Second item also is the opportunity for us to approve the one-day liquor license for the Red Rooster Coffee House for the at 218 South Main, and that is for June the 4th.
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Remley and second by Ronayne. Questions on this one? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C is a request permit to remove the damaged canopy on the Alonzo Ward Hotel. You want to handle this, Ron? Or?
That'd be mine.
That'd be yours.
Yes. Since the canopy was damaged on the Alonzo Ward Hotel, we went through the process with the State Historical Preservation Office to see if they need to replace it or if they can get by without having to put it back up. The Historical Preservation Office looked at it, said there are some issues. It is a historical structure. I'd like to see it back up, but they understand that it's cost prohibitive for them to do. And we've gone through it, and you have their report in your packet as well. And they would like to see it go up, but the final decision is based on the city council. So you get to make that decision as to whether or not they need to replace that. Staff has looked at it, and I guess we're in favor of it not having to be replaced just because it is cost prohibitive. We would like to see it back up just because it is historical, but the cost of it is pretty high.
Move approval.
Motion Remley, second by Slate Hansen. The motion would be to allow the permit to remove the damaged canopy in the manner that Brett described. Ron, additional item?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's kind of reset a little bit here. Typically, in the approval process on these, we request that a resolution be entered by the council, be approved by the council, essentially adopting the findings in the report, and the report was provided to the council as part of its agenda package. And I do have a resolution that would not only set forth just kind of the procedural history as it's come to date, but also the council would be making findings consistent with the report. And this is a requirement that we follow for purposes of providing 10-day notice to the State Historic Preservation Office after this has been passed. They then examine that and give a final sign-off on things. So we would ask that resolution number 1906-02R, which was not part of the package, but which I can circulate around to everyone, be made as the motion and approved by this council.
Okay, I guess I would ask, any objection from any of the council members to doing it this way?
It sounds like Obamacare.
Being rammed down your throat.
Do I take that as an objection, or?
Well, I think it's probably okay in this sense, but I do kind of like to see these things before the meeting. I like to know what it is we're going to adopt.
Can this wait a week?
Yeah. Move to continue till next week.
Second.
Motion Rux, second by Ronayne to postpone this till next Monday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That'll give everybody a chance to take a look at that. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the list of bills that you have been provided that Carl has submitted for payment. I would entertain a motion to pay those.
Moved. Second.
Motion Lunsman, second by Rux. Questions on any of them? Carl?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness. Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leeson.
Aye, motion carries. Lynn, what do you have for us tonight?
One quick item, I'd like to encourage council with their promotion fund allocation to turn them in by next Monday to Carl, so we can go start the process of determining who will receive what money and how much they'll receive. That's all I have at this time.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was looking through the packet from Carl, and I was unable to find what the total was that we're supposed to allocate this year. Did I miss it, or?
It's a new email
Oh, okay.
this
New
afternoon.
email.
Oh, I didn't get that yet.
Read your
Okay,
email.
thank you.
No, and I just sent it out late this afternoon too.
And that was 1,213,000.
1,213,000 is the number that you should use for the allocations to the different.
Okay.
Yes, I had the pleasure of going to the Elm River meeting last week with city staff, and I just wanted to pay them a compliment for their professional behavior under, some unfortunate comments and emotion. So we had Robert Brown, Lynn, Robin, and Stu, and they did just an excellent job of controlling themselves under pretty intense scrutiny. Also would like to thank Scott Meintz because he did an excellent job of helping our argument at the table. So he really just was there to back us up. So that it was an emotional charged meeting, and I think Lynn came out of that with an idea, and it's already implemented that idea to maybe help those residents. And so maybe Lynn, you want to, just make that
Well,
known?
basically, they were concerned about the notification process being outside the city. And I agreed to take our subscriber notification and create a new category. It's called Elm Lake, Elm River, Moccasin Creek. Whereas in the future, as we work on activities, for those residents, if they should subscribe, they'll get warnings or notices when we're working. And actually, Marie took her 2 days to work that up on our website. And so we're going to try a test run on June 24th. And I think that'll help quite a bit in assisting those people as to the activities going on in the future, even though they're outside our corporate limits. If in fact the system works, why not utilize it to our benefit to help them?
Okay.
Great job.
Anyone else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second by Remley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.